Okay, so welcome to today's session. We're going to talk about the type of questions, part two. So we addressed some of this last time and we'll continue it. And I got some feedback that you guys want to do more practice problems, so we'll try to do 2 passages today. And as always, you guys can contact us if you have any questions at cat101questions@gmail.com. So let's get started. And one more thing before we start, please help us and donate to our GoFundMe so we can continue to do these sessions for you guys. Okay, so weekly check-in. How is cars going for you guys with pacing, timing? Have you been working on your strategies? What do you guys still need to work on? So let me know in the chat. Did you guys take a diagnostic test? So remember, if you've taken a diagnostic test and you got less than 125, that means you need to work on reading comprehension, and that can be done using third-party passages such as the Khan Academy ones or Jack Weston or any other Kaplan Princeton Review passages to just work on your reading skills and understanding the passage. And okay, I see some first timers here. So if you guys have any questions and you want to go over previous material that we've discussed, I'm going to send out all the recordings so you guys can access those and the slides. So we've talked about a lot of car strategies in the past sessions, so definitely feel free to go back and review those and let me know if you have any questions if this is your first time here. Yeah, okay. And yeah, if you guys are having trouble with your car score, please feel free to email me or we can chat and talk more personally what you guys might need to work on. Because for cars, it's definitely unique. You need to find your own strategy. And so we'll definitely talk about that if you guys need more personal help. Okay, so let's keep going. So last time we discussed a lot of the inference questions and we'll keep going. Yeah, I'll send all the recording in the post-session email, so look out for that. So the strengthen and weaken questions. So again, strengthen would add and support the author. So you just want to find the best answer that would support the author. Whereas weaken would undermine the author, meaning it would go against the author, what the passage was talking about, and you would want to look for an answer that does that. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, perfect. So the similarity between these questions is usually the question states which of the following would be true. If true, would strengthen or weaken the author or the passage. So what you want to do in this case is take the answer choices as if they are true. So imagine those are true. How would that help your claim in the passage? Would it strengthen the author or would it weaken the author's claim? So just think about it that way. Okay, so inference questions, we've talked more about these last time. So this is when you want to take the passage as true and then you want to apply what you read in the passage to the answer choices. So something like this would look like the author would support which of the following, and it would be like a question from the passage. So you would just apply that to the answer choices. So you want to stick to the bottom line. So what that means is, as we talked about coming up with the short summary for each paragraph and for the overall passage, you want to stick to that idea. And we'll keep practicing this as usual. So let me know if you guys have any questions so far. Otherwise, we'll keep going. And let me know if I'm going too fast or anything. Okay, so analogy questions. These can be really tricky and difficult. Let me know if you guys want me to slow down on this, because these are usually when you have to apply the same passage to a different subject outside of the passage. So it might be not even related to the passage. So it's really difficult to apply this sometimes. And students usually try to stick with the passage theme. Like if the passage was talking about like cars, you might like, okay, I don't want to use cars because the subject is called cars. Maybe like machines, right? If the passage was talking about machines and you see a machine answer choice, that doesn't mean that is the correct answer, because you want to look for the theme in the passage. Maybe the author was actually talking about the progression of machines. So you want to look at those really carefully and think about which answer choice has to do with like the progression of something, and like you want to match it up best to the passage and not just the theme of the passage. So we'll hopefully do a practice of this, but let me know if that kind of makes sense. And at the end of the day, if you're still confused about this question, just stick to the bottom line. Just think about what the author was talking about and find the answer choice that is best fit. Okay, we have a question. How can we improve in identifying the theme? Yeah, so this is a great question. And it's a really important one, because at the end of the day, if you don't know something, you want to stick to the theme. And this is usually done by just thinking of a quick summary of each paragraph like we've been doing. So after you read each paragraph, just take a quick break and think about what that paragraph was about and why the author wrote it in terms of the passage. So maybe paragraph 1 was about architecture, and then paragraph 2 was like comparing the two architecture types, stuff like that. So you want to like just write a brief summary, and at the end of the passage, you're going to have like 4 to 5 paragraph summaries. And this usually helps you identify the common theme, what the author was discussing in each paragraph, and it can help you build upon the bigger idea of the whole passage. Does that kind of make sense? And we'll definitely practice that when we do a practice passage. Let me know if you want me to explain that a little bit more. And since we're going to do 2 passages today, hopefully, I'll do one of them together so you guys can see how we apply these strategies, and then you guys can do one by yourself and we'll go over it. Okay. Roman numerals. So these are kind of tricky because sometimes you can't tell which is true, but these can always be beneficial with elimination. So if you find an answer choice that is wrong, you can definitely eliminate all those answers that have that Roman numeral in there. So if, for example, let me write on here. So if like 1 is, if A is like 1 and 2, and B is 2 and 3, C is 1 and 3, and you find that 3 is wrong, like you looked at 3 and 3 was obviously not in the passage, it's incorrect, what you can automatically do is just cross off B and cross off C, and then you automatically are left with A as your answer. Does that make sense? So that's a good strategy to use in Roman numerals because that's the fastest way to get to the answer. And another good choice is to start with the answer choice that appears twice. So what that means is that, as you can tell, wait, actually all of these appear twice. So if there was one that appeared, let's say, let's see, hold up, sorry guys. I think I already did all of them twice, but let's just say 2 only. So we wouldn't want to choose 2 to start off with because it's in 3 answer choices. And if we find that's right, we can't eliminate anything, right? Obviously, if it's not right, then we are only stuck with C. But most cases, like if you have an answer choice and there's in many of them, it might be right. So you want to stick with something that comes once or twice, so you can eliminate more choices. Does that make sense? That's just a strategy to use for these type of questions. Okay, cool. Oh, okay, yeah, I will say that again. Let me redo all of that. Okay. Which part are you confused about? Or would you like me to just run this whole slide over? If 2 appears twice. Okay, well, in this case, 2 appears 3 times. Do you see in A, B, and D? So if we choose like to look at number 2 first, here, I'll write them here too. So like 1, I'm just gonna write something random so you guys can see this. Okay, cool. So as you can see, the choice 2 shows up 3 times, right? So it doesn't make any sense to start with 2 to see if cars was in the passage or something like that, because if we decide that 2 is true, like we can check mark it, then we can't eliminate anything. So that just tells us A, B, and D are the answer and C is not the answer. So the best choice here would be to start with something that only shows up twice. So like number 3 or number 1. So in that case, you can choose any of them. So if we want to look at houses or boats, it doesn't matter because they both show up twice. So if we go back to the passage and decide that if we decide that houses, Roman numeral 1 only was incorrect in the passage, right? It's not correct. Then we can eliminate that and go to our answer choices and say that, okay, so number 1 was not right. So we're going to eliminate all those answers that have number 1 in it. Does that make sense? Or no? Let me know if I'm just confusing everyone. Okay, cool. Okay, let's keep going then. Okay, cool. We're actually going to do some practice now and try to get through 2 practice passages. But let me know before that if you guys have any questions and if you want to discuss anything before we start the passage. Yeah, go ahead. If you want to unmute and talk, that is totally fine. Go ahead. Oh, okay. Were you just asking about that or did you have a question? Does anyone have a question or are we good to start practicing? Good to start. Okay, cool. So we can do this one together, and I will load this on my page. So if you guys want to follow along, you can go to jackweston.com, Khan Academy Passages, and it's on the first page called Designing Courthouses. So let me know when we're good to start.
Sorry, you could just send the link via the chat.
Yeah. Here you go.
Thanks.
If you click on that, it should be on the first page, Designing Courthouses. Okay, so we usually start off with reading the questions first, and we do that just to get an idea of what we're going to be asked for, and we can slow down and read a little bit more carefully. So, according to Mass, people's reaction to the two buildings were independent of. Okay, so people's reaction to the two buildings, and according to this person. Okay, and this is really short. So one thing about Khan Academy is that the passages are great, but the questions are not always what you will see on the MCAT, because you will not see a 3-question passage. I'm pretty sure, I think it's 4, 5, and 6. Okay. In the passage, the author justifies rejecting the emotional mood as a mediator. Explanation with which of these reasons? So author rejects this explanation. Which of the following examples is most consistent with Mass's suggestion that the architectural design features can affect perceptions by activating specific thoughts and mental associations, which is found in the final paragraph? Okay, great. So after we read the questions, we can go ahead and get started with the passage. Okay. In a recent study, do you guys need me to read out loud, or is it fine? But okay, I will just go ahead and let me know what you guys. Oh yeah, this was called Designing Courthouses. So in a recent study, psychologists investigated the effects of courthouse architecture on psychological well-being and cognitive processes of the users. She compared 2 courthouses in Italy, the old courthouse located in former convent, originally built in 1345, and the new courthouse built in 1991 and designed by this person, an internationally known architect. Okay, so she compared 2 courthouses in Italy, and there's the old one in 1345 and the new one in 1991. Okay, and it's by this internationally known architect, and they serve the same purpose. The buildings have completely different styles. One is an old building with a rather residential look, warm colors, large windows, large wooden door. The other, a massive gray, semicircular building with narrow windows and an entrance enclosed between 2 huge walls. Okay, great. So what can be a summary of this paragraph? Two buildings, same purpose. That's a good summary. So paragraph 1, 2 buildings, the same purpose. Okay, moving on. When study participants were asked to imagine themselves accompanying a friend to the courthouse, they reported greater discomfort and stress when anticipating a trial in the modern building. Okay. So these are the study participants. They felt greater stress when they anticipated it in the modern building. However, contrary to predictions, this was only true when they were already familiar with the two buildings. Okay. It is possible that photographs reduce the actual impact of the architectural design, although this would contradict prior research by architect Gavin Stamp, showing that distortions due to photographic presentation have negligible effects on preference. Another possibility for participants' greater discomfort when imagining going to the new courthouse is that those with prior experience may have been exposed to the building from multiple angles, whereas unfamiliar participants received information only about the building's facade. Okay. What is important in this passage or in this paragraph? What else should I highlight? Do you guys see anything else that stood out to you? The word however, yep. Okay, bias. Another possibility, okay. Discomfort, modern building, yep. Cool. This would contradict the prior research, showing that distortions due to photographic presentation have negligible effects on preference. Okay. And then something about their prior experience, exposure to the building. Okay, cool. What can we say about this summary here, about this paragraph? Anyone? Just one or two words? What was important that stood out? Okay, yeah. Oh, okay. Discomfort and modern building. Cool. I'm just going to write modern building as MB. So whenever you just summarize, make sure you know what they stand for. Okay, next paragraph. It is important to note that participants did not generally dislike the new building. Okay. From the standpoint of general aesthetic distinctions, such as beauty versus ugliness, no differences emerged between the two buildings. If anything, the new building was seen as slightly more attractive. The data suggests that participants responded more to the intimidating nature of the building than to its beauty. Okay, so they did not dislike it, and there was no difference between the two buildings. And if anything, the new building is slightly more attractive. The data suggests that it was more intimidating rather than the beauty. So what can we write in this paragraph? Yeah, okay, intimidating, yep. Intimidating, and I would even just say that because that's leading to why they felt that discomfort. So as you guys can see, I really shorthand stuff, and my summaries are really short, but they make sense to me. So just make sure you do them in a way that makes sense to you. And you don't have a lot of time to write, but just make sure you have something that you can understand. Okay. The most important result of this research is that courthouse architecture was found to affect the estimated likelihood of conviction. Okay, that's really important. The architecture affects the likelihood of conviction. Participants were more pessimistic about the trial outcome when they imagined entering the new building than when they imagined entering the old one. And this occurred regardless of whether participants had any prior familiarity with the respective buildings. It remains unclear exactly which architectural features are responsible for the observed shift in likelihood of conviction estimates. The modern building differs on so many dimensions, and they list those. From the old building, that it's impossible to isolate their individual impact. Also, it may be the interaction of features that creates the overall impression of the building as intimidating. So what is important that we should highlight here? Okay, also, it remains unclear exactly which architectural features. The modern building differs a lot. Impossible to isolate the individual impact. Okay, good. Overall impression, okay. Yeah, that's great. So what can be a good summary um, of this paragraph? Yeah, that's great. So the architecture impacts the conviction. Cool. Okay, how exactly do the features affect the social cognitive processes such as likelihood estimates? One possibility is that the design features affect the emotional well-being or the mood, which in turn biases his or her thought processes. Okay, cool. For example, the architectural characteristics of the new courthouse seem to have made hypothetical users feel anxious and tense. Oh, okay. Anxious and tense. And a bad mood has been shown to induce negative thoughts and expectations. So bad mood induces negative thoughts and expectations. However, building type affected perceived likelihood of conviction also for those participants who showed no enhanced discomfort in reaction to the new building. Interesting. So, so it affected the conviction also for the ones who showed no discomfort to the new building. So first the author was saying that it might be the emotional well-being or the mood, and then that can bias the thought process. But then there's also participants who showed no discomfort, but they also um, had a different likelihood of conviction. Okay, what can we say for this paragraph then? Yeah, so there's kind of like mixed results for the new building. Okay. Paragraph 6. Another and more plausible possibility is that the design features of the new courthouse activated specific thoughts and mental associations related to conviction. Ooh. For example, some participants spontaneously commented that the new building had greater resemblance to a prison than to a courthouse. Others mentioned that the two high walls enclosing the entrance give the impression that those who enter the building are already convicted. Interesting. So this is another possibility that it activated different associations related to conviction, resemblance to prison, and the people who entered it were already convicted. What can we say as a final summary for this? Yeah, so the design activated something like the mental associations, and it also resembled a prison. Okay, good one. I'm gonna say design looked like a prison. Okay, so as you can just read through these, like we talked about the two buildings having the same purpose, but there was more discomfort in the modern building, and then the author goes on to say why, like it was intimidating, and then the architecture can impact the conviction estimates. But then he mentioned there was mixed results that it could be something like the mood, but then he said even people that didn't feel a bad mood also said the likelihood of conviction was higher. And then later he says it could be just the design because it looks like a prison. Does anyone have any questions how we did this, or any question on the passage before we move on to the questions? How long ideally should this part take? Yeah, this should take you around, it depends on how many questions there are, but this should not take you more than 3 to 4 minutes. And since I was doing it slower because I was reading out loud and highlighting, it took definitely longer, but with practice, this should be down to around, I would say 3 to 4 minutes. It really also depends how long you take on a passage. But ideally, if you do this in like 3 to 5 minutes, then you have enough time to go over the questions as well. Okay, so we'll start with number 3. Which of the following examples is most consistent with his suggestion that the design can affect perceptions by activating thoughts and mental associations? So he said that the design looked like a prison, which made people think of conviction, and already the people that go inside it are already convicted. So we kind of want to look at an answer similar to that type of analogy. So what do you guys think of these answer choices? Let me know. I'll give you guys a couple seconds to go through them. Is there anything that we can eliminate? So we want to think of our main idea. So think about where he said the thoughts and mental associations, the design looked like a prison, so that's why a lot of people thought that. So we want to think about the design and what it can relate to. So we can eliminate, yeah, a lot of these. So D and C kind of doesn't have to do with that. And B also is kind of out of the theme of the passage and the analogy that is used of the building looking like a prison. This A, though, has bank, you're thinking of money. And then you would think of designs such as, gold, meaning money and stuff like that. So does that make sense why A would go with that? Okay, perfect. And I think I missed a question. So how would we go about now finding the overall theme? So basically, you want to just look at your summary and like think about what the main idea was. I wouldn't spend too much time worrying about anything else because this is what is mostly going to show up in the questions. Okay, moving on. Number 2, in the passage, the author justifies rejecting the emotional mood as mediator explanation with which of the following reasons. So the author, remember, he said the mood is not a good explanation. Why? Because we got mixed results. So in paragraph 5, he said, the mood might be shown to do negative thoughts. However, building type also gave conviction, even those participants who didn't show any of that mood or discomfort. So we want to think about that. So why did the author reject that? So which answer choice kind of is the best choice for that? I would definitely go ahead and eliminate A. Emotions do not influence our expectations nearly as much as we think they do. That does not seem something we can tell from the passage. B looks like a good answer with thinking about what the author said, and he said that the building type affected the likelihood of conviction even for those who didn't show any mood change. So that seems okay. The study did not measure and compare the participants' mood before and after the imagined entry into the courthouse. Um, well, that's not something that was mentioned in the passage, and that's not why the author justified rejecting it. So C is something we can eliminate. And the study did not compare the mood of those entering the new building and those who imagined entering with the mood of those who imagined entering the new building. And again, that's not why the author justified rejecting it. So does that make sense why B would be the best answer? Would anyone like me to explain any of the other ones again? Okay, if not, we can move on. Okay, according to Mav, people's reactions to the two buildings were independent of. Okay. So that's kind of what he mentioned in paragraph 3. People didn't like, the people didn't not like the new building. If anything, it was more attractive, right? So it suggests that the participants responded to the intimidating nature of the building than to its beauty. So I definitely don't think it was any of their peers that could have influenced the reaction. We didn't really discuss size of the building that much, except for he just said like an old building and a new building. And we didn't really talk about the history, and it was more about comparing the buildings. He did mention talking about the beauty of the building, but he mentioned that if anything, the new building was more attractive, but it was still seen as more, it led to more conviction. So does the A make sense here, guys? Let me know. Yeah? Okay, great, perfect. Okay, so we're gonna go back and you guys are gonna do one by yourself and we'll go over it. The next one, you can use the same link, go to Jack, oh wait, am I not sharing my screen anymore? Okay, you can go to jackweston.com on the top, click practice, MCAT cards practice, and still on the first page, politics. Let me know if you guys need me to send the link or something. Oh. And I will time you guys. I'll give you guys around 8 or 9 minutes to do this, and then we'll go over it. Passage to Jack Weston, Evangelical Politics. Okay, you guys can start, and yep, go ahead and start. Are you guys done? Okay, perfect. Cool. So you guys can see can you see my screen? Okay, cool. Okay, this is what I kind of highlighted, what I thought was important. I'm not going to go over the passage just because of time, but if you guys need me to go over it, I can do that at the end. So we'll start with the questions first, just so we have enough time to go through that. And if anyone needs me to go over the passage, we'll do that at the end. So if you guys started with the questions, we should be at question 6, and then we'll work backwards. Okay, so the reference to the American civil religion suggests that the author believes that, what did you guys put for this? So he mentioned the American civil religion in the passage in paragraph 4. So he mentioned this in paragraph 4 right here. He preached the American civil religion, and why does he mention that? What was the author's point of view for saying that? And he mentions that like it's important for a bunch of reasons: flag, for the freedom, for the armed forces, and basically this is the American way of life. So that's kind of telling you that that there's a lot of aspects of preaching the American civil religion, and is basically the American way of life. So you want to choose an answer choice that kind of goes with that. Okay, so I can see that we're going for A and D. So the passage is more about how religion impacts politics. It's not saying directly that religion is a form of politics. So this is kind of tempting, but this would be an example of where we this is too what do you call that, out of scope and too extreme to say that religion in America is secretly a form of politics. We cannot like say that. We that's kind of assuming too much from the passage. So that's why D is the better answer, because the author mentioned in this paragraph that's why it exists is for the American way of life, and by mentioning these examples for the flag, for freedom, for the forces, that's kind of saying that a lot of aspects have religious influence. Does that make sense to the folks that picked A? Yeah, okay. Perfect. And thank you for sharing. We're all here to learn, and it really just helps us grow when you guys participate. So don't feel afraid even if you have the wrong answer. That's not why we're here. It's better to get it wrong and learn. Okay, question 5. Elsewhere, the author says that American Christians want to believe that someone is looking, or someone is watching out for them. This statement agrees with what passage assertion. So this kind of goes with paragraph 3, where in the show that God cured the person. So that kind of goes that Christians want someone to believe that someone is watching out for them. So we kind of want something along that assertion. So going with these answer choices, what looks like a good answer choice based on that? Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's go for B too, though. Americans believe that as bad as the world can be, Americans can improve the lives of other people. Interesting. That sounds really tempting, right? But this is asking about what someone else can do for them, right? So it kind of flip-flops a question around. So it's talking about the lives of other people, not the work that they would do for you. So D is a little better just because it suggests that someone is watching out for them, like God is watching out for them with their show. Does that make sense? Okay, that's great. Okay, why is the popularity of fundamentalist television surprising? Where did the author talk about this? It was going back right here. Okay, so definitely like paragraph 2, like fundamentalism does not seem like it would appeal, so why does it appeal? And it goes against much of what has been assumed. Um, and it doesn't seem like it would appeal, and it goes against a lot of things about the American life. So what goes with that answer choice? Why is the popularity of fundamentalist television surprising? Yep, you guys got it, B. Yeah, so that's definitely in the passage stating that one would not like think that fundamentalism would appeal to the masses because it goes against what they assume. Okay. Which of the following inferences is justified by information in the passage? So here we would just go through each question or each answer choice and think about related to the passage. So A, the leaders tend to support the same politicians. Was that mentioned in the passage? Was religious intervention in politics threatens the separation of the church and the state? Was that mentioned? So A and B were not really mentioned in the passage, so we can cross them off. Moving on. Politics is not a purely secular social phenomenon. That seems okay, right? So it mentioned like politics and religion. That was definitely something we addressed in the passage. We even have like an example of the pastor getting involved. So that seems okay. And then they are the only Christian sect involving itself directly in politics. That goes a little extreme because although this passage only discussed the evangelicals, but that's a little extreme to say that they're the only sect that would involve itself in politics. So does C make sense here? Okay, great. Okay, number 2. The author suggests that fundamentalists believe that the world is in trouble and full of pain. Where do we discuss trouble and pain? Which paragraph? That was kind of in the beginning, right? The world is full of sin and suffering. Man's very nature is evil. So something along those lines. So what would go with this answer? Yeah, so definitely that's kind of right there. Man's nature is evil. Man is tempted to do wrong. Good job, guys. Okay. It would be consistent with Jim's views in the passage to regard the presidential election as. Okay, great. So let's just go where we started talking about Jim. He was kind of mentioned here, but that was just an example. So we talk about him more here. That he mentioned that the candidates, our goal is to influence all the candidates on issues important to the church. So we kind of want to talk about something politics and the church. So what was the best answer here? Yeah, okay. So C sounds like a good answer choice because having a theological dimension must mean that they're trying to convince the candidates on issues that the church wants, right? Our goal is to influence all the candidates on issues important to the church. So that kind of has to go with the theological dimension. He didn't really mention religions, other religions, right? So we can eliminate that. It's not really talking about being essentially American or other evils. Does that make sense, guys? Is there any other answer choice you want me to go over, or a question you want me to go back to, or even anything in the passage? Does this kind of help you guys see like how to do the passage? Is this how you guys are doing them now, or um, is it still not working for you? Let me know how you guys are doing with these strategies. Yeah, so honestly, the best answer I have for the best passages and questions is that third party passages are just there for practice. You know, practice your strategy, practice your timing, and practice reading and understanding the passage. Don't worry too much about the questions all the time. You do want to try to get most of them correct, but just focus on getting your strategy down. You don't want to worry about that when you start doing the real double AMC passages. So just focus on strategy for the any third party passages. I I think the best, I mean, Jack Weston is good because they're free, and the Khan Academy ones are really good because they've partnered with the double AMC. So the passages are really good practice for reading comprehension, but the questions, they don't always match up just because the number of questions. Sometimes a passage will only have 3 questions, but it's still okay for practice. And okay, yeah, sure. Question 2, why is D better than A? Um, the fund that the author suggests that fundamentalists believe the world is in trouble because and full of pain because. Okay, yeah. Hmm. Okay, so it does mention that like the Bible, like they believe in the Bible is literally the word of God. But why do they believe that the world is in trouble and full of pain? So they mentioned that along with that, the world is now full of sin and suffering. But even Christians can do little to improve matters because man's very nature is evil. So they're saying that even though there's pain and suffering and Christians want to help, man's very nature is evil. So, like, man is going to do wrong. That's what they're trying to say. And um, the passage does mention it, but it's not clear why would that have to do why would that mean that the world is in trouble? Like, if they consider the Bible to be authoritative, why does that mean that the world is in trouble and full of pain? Yeah, no worries. Okay, someone asked, should we highlight during the exam or should we write notes on paragraphs or do both? Okay, yeah, that's great because for me, I like to just highlight the important stuff, and I also do like to write. You guys see me do both because when I write, I know which paragraph to go back to. And then when I go back to the paragraph, I highlight so I can just skim over the important things. So I wouldn't, start reading here. I would just read the important parts I highlighted and skim through that really quickly. So I tend to do both just because highlighting makes a word stand out to me and I can see it better. But that's personal, if you don't like to highlight, if you don't like to write and it doesn't help you, then don't do it. Just figure out what your strategy is. Any other questions? Yeah, thank you guys for coming. I hope this was helpful. Um, I'm sorry we didn't get to break down the passage for this one, but if you need me to, I can do that really quickly. But if you guys have any questions, let me know. I'll stay for a few more minutes. Oh, sorry, I stopped the sharing.